was lucky enough to land in Ballard High School. I felt like I could work on the same diversity issues in Seattle that I was working on at Interlake High School.
Students would be bused from their neighborhoods where they lived to schools all across the district, and the intent behind that was to try to diversify the schools.
I was bused all over the place. I attended kindergarten close to my house, and then I started on kind of my own little mini tour of the city. And it was an opportunity to be in parts of the city that I didn't otherwise spend a ton of time in. It introduced me and connected me with a lot of people from different backgrounds that lived in different neighborhoods. And for me, I think it was a really informative part of my childhood.
There were parents who lived in Queen Anne and or Magnolia whose children were slated to attend Ballard, and they had been accepted into the biotech program, but they were not awarded spots at Ballard. And so they ended up suing the district and saying that it violated their rights and the rights of their children for them to not be able to go to the school that was closest to their home.
It was Pick versus Seattle schools, and we're contesting the racial tiebreaker that Seattle used at that time to enroll students, diverse students, into its more racially segregated schools, so typically moving students of color into the North End. When the lawsuit first came to light, I went through kind of a variety of emotions and responses. And at first I was just kind of outraged, like, how can this be? How can they take away this one tool we have to kind of address Seattle's segregation problem at the time? I overheard some teachers talking about, well, nobody ever responds to this kind of stuff, and they were kind of expressing a sense of hopelessness. And that's when I decided this is time to stand up and engage in a little political activism, and it was a threat and something had to be done, and I was probably the best person to do it.
One of the things that's interesting about the two North End schools that became oversubscribed and prompted this lawsuit, Ballard and Nathan Hale, is while they have always been located in predominantly white neighborhoods, until the late 1990s, they were predominantly minority schools. But then Ballard got a new building, state-of-the-art building, and an activist principal. And he turned that school around by implementing innovative programs, and all of a sudden, the neighborhood people wanted to go to that school, whereas before they might have wanted to go to Garfield.
The Constitution simply says that you can't use race, as interpreted by the Supreme Court cases.
But of course, we know that you can use race, and even you concede that. You're only saying that, well, you can't use it here because the racial imbalance isn't enough.
There's no evidence in this case that the Seattle School District has done anything other than its best efforts to make sure that all schools are of good quality and that it has tried where it can.
Then why are the schools in the white neighborhoods better than the schools in the minority neighborhoods?
I don't know, Your Honor.
But that's the fact.
My decision to leave Ballard High School was painful because when I came to Ballard High School, I had kind of, in my mind, decided that this is where I'll work and retire and stay in my community. So it was not a trivial decision, and I knew that there was a lot at stake. Making a stand raised awareness around the issues. I felt like it had to be a very public act. So we had a school assembly, and I announced to the students and explained why I was taking the step I was. It was a really emotional moment for a lot of students, and I got hundreds of notes from people all around the school district and from students and from former students of mine. I felt like I really activated the student body to talk about this issue and to embrace it, and they clearly understood the meaning of what was coming and were kind of preparing themselves for a future that looked a little less promising. So one of the final things I did as principal at Ballard High School is we had a staff meeting in the spring, late spring, and I asked the faculty to give me advice on a 5x8 cards, and everybody turned in some advice, and they could be anonymous if they wanted to be, about what I should do next. And so one of them said, next steps, continue to act bravely, number 1. 2, keep the discussion going. That was good. 3, when you reach the hard landing, give yourself a little time to heal and start climbing again. We all need your modeling to help us understand the complex issues and be willing to act out. I left Ballard High School and I wasn't finished being a high school principal, and so I went to Bellingham and I was able to get an interview in Bellingham and interviewed for the job at Squalicum High School, which was the most diverse high school in Bellingham. So I went there and got to go right back to work on some of the same issues that I'd been working on in Seattle. I don't think I could have lived with myself if I hadn't have made a stand. So I would have, if I had compromised at that point, I would have lived in the community wondering, why didn't I do something?
I have a lot of respect for the Black Student Union and Star Club and the Multicultural Club. I wish there was a way to maybe integrate those kind of clubs, what they're saying, into what is being taught at Ballard. Sometimes I'll be in class and something race-related happens, and I just kind of look up and around and see that there's like barely anyone else to relate to.
I think that a significant first place to start is education. You know, we need to be able to inform people about why phrases, words, actions are painful for folks. Because, you know, look at our class colors. Our school colors are black and red. So there's been lots of times over the last 20 years to where I've seen students come in not knowing or thinking anything of it on a spirit day with their face painted black, right? It's not okay.
For me, it's not about white people becoming convinced that they need to be different, but more able to communicate and understand across all the boundaries that we're protected from as white people.
I think what's really important is that they go looking for the knowledge and go looking for experiences.
It starts with listening, I think, and taking seriously the concerns that students, particularly students of color, raise.
For the future of Ballard, there is no sign that the neighborhoods of Seattle are going to diversify anytime soon. If anything, they've become less diverse. And you've seen people of color being pushed farther and farther out of the city.
I think there wasn't a sense about the whitening until after the court case and after I left, and the demographics started to shift again away from that direction we were moving. And what's happened across the city, as you know, is that our schools are more segregated now than they ever were.
Unless or until we change the whole structure of our school system, then I would like to, at least within the system that we have students of color feel like they are in a place where they are listened to, where they are heard, and where they feel like their peers and their teachers and their administrators are supporting them.
It's not okay for students to accept this reality. In some ways, you're trapped in an adult problem that's not healthy for your futures. And I worry about the future of the city and the country when it's as segregated as it is right now, and how we're going to break down those boundaries is the work for the future.
The use of the N-word is never okay by any white people, by any people that have not been used to be hurt, to be belittled by that term. Never. Not quoting lyrics, not singing along with a song, never. It's not even close to enough for what needs to happen. Because these, at this point in here, are just words, and it's only through the actions that are going to follow that you're going to see what really amounts to change, and what really amounts to the commitment that we're making today. But this only works if all of us work on it together, if we're not bystanders, if we make sure to talk to each other and call each other out respectfully when things happen. And sometimes it can't be as respectful as we might like, but we need to talk to each other and help each other.